Hello, Gen Genies. It's me, Julie.
And Rich.
Before we get started today, we want to let you in on some exciting news. We have launched our new Patreon page for the podcast.
Woohoo! We are super excited about this new chapter for CutOff Jeans.
So, Patreon is a website where listeners like you can pledge a small monthly amount. We're talking only $5 or $10, guys, to support the podcast and help defray the costs of bringing you the show each week.
To be clear, CutOff Jeans will continue to be absolutely free. But to thank you for your support, we are going to offer our patrons some fun little extras.
Like early access to the podcast every week, where you'll get to hear the latest episode before it's released to the general public.
And why not make your friends jealous with exclusive patron-only CutOff Jeans swag?
Fancy. And here's something you guys have been asking for, and I'm really looking forward to this. I'm going to host a monthly, hour-long, online Ask Me Anything session where patrons at the $10 level can literally ask me anything.
Anything? You're a brave woman, Julie.
You know, I know. I'm also going to give access to my blog, Are You My Father?, where I tell the story of my search, actually it's my life story basically, for my biological father in even more detail than I did on the podcast.
Wow, your blog was the original inspiration for CutOff Jeans, wasn't it?
It was.
Wow. Well, all patrons at any level will receive a shout out on the podcast along with our undying gratitude for your support.
Yep. You guys know that this show is a labor of love for me. It's something I'm very passionate about. It'd mean so much to me if you would consider supporting our work here on the podcast by going to patreon.com/CutOff Jeans podcast.
That's Patreon, patreon.com/CutOff Jeans podcast.
We'll add a link to it on the podcast and on the Facebook page. Thank you all, my Gen Genies.
And now, on with the show.
Woo!
Is your family tree a mystery? Are you fascinated by genealogy? Well, hip, hip, hooray, let's talk DNA with Julie.
The truth is in your genes.
In CutOff Jeans.
Welcome to CutOff Genes, the podcast that helps you find your truth using nothing but DNA. I'm Julie Dixon Jackson, and I'm a genetic genealogist, henceforth known as a Gen Genie.
And I am Richard Castle, the co-host and producer of this podcast. And now I'm also a client. Because guess what, Julie?
What, Richard?
I finally got my DNA results
I know.
back from Ancestry, and I've been waiting, and I know I was complaining that it was taking too long, but I did it right after Christmas when they probably had the rush.
Yes.
But it was kind of exciting when they came back.
Yeah.
And I mean, at first, I will say, a little anticlimactic.
Yeah. Why would that be?
Well, because I thought, I'm going to find out some secrets or whatever, like I told you, I had concerns that perhaps I might have, that my dad might have fathered.
That may still happen. This isn't the end.
This is true.
Yeah.
But there were no secrets, at least in,
that
I thought would be,
yes.
that my dad did not have any kids.
You have no direct half siblings or first cousins that we don't know about.
Right. Yeah. And then, of course, my
ethnicity
estimate. I thought I'd find like something really interesting with different percentages, but no, I'm literally, according to this, and I know it's an estimate because we talked about this many times in the podcast, 50% Ireland and Scotland and 50% European Jewish. And I mean, I literally could have told you that without...
Can I just tell you, I have never seen an exact 50-50 break of it's usually 52-48 or it's stunning to me.
Yeah. I mean, When I thought that at first I thought this has got to be some kind of racket because, when I did my dog's DNA like a couple of years ago, I got back 50% Jack Russell Terrier, 50% French Bulldog. And I thought, does that mean both of his parents were full bred dogs, like purebred?
I mean, it shouldn't.
Right, but that was the percentage. It was 50%.
Yeah, but maybe each of the parents was 50% those too.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but in this case, it was clear that it is like that your father is Irish and your mother's Jewish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I knew that my grandmother from my dad's mother came from Ireland, and I knew that my mom's family came from Eastern Europe.
Right.
And so
No surprises
I guess
there.
nobody lied to me, and I'm a little shocked
Nope.
because I'm on this podcast and everybody's got all these family secrets.
Well,
who knows?
There's time.
I'm kind of upset that there's nothing like.
Well, don't be
nothing
upset.
unexpected in the wood pile.
Fun things will happen.
I wanted to find like a little Ethiopian or something like, ooh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, a little spice.
Yeah, a little
that'd
spice.
Be fun.
A little
That'd be
spice
fun.
in there.
Yeah, I don't. I used to have a little spice. It went away.
Now it's Old Spice.
No, I used to have a little bit of oh gosh, what is it? Like Spain or something. A very small, like insignificant, but that is long gone.
I know. That's when you went and bought those castagnettes.
No, but I do have something funny to tell you about that.
Oh, okay.
Wait. Remember when I told you that I thought I was Irish when it came back Irish when I didn't know what I was looking at, and so I just assumed that I was. Oh my God, I'm Irish, and so I dyed my hair red.
Yes, that's right. You were quite the lass.
I had a couple of months of insanity. I was watching House Hunters International the other day, which I love. I love watching a house hunting show because I like looking at the inside of other people's houses. I like potential. And there was a woman who was adopted, and she did her DNA and found her biological family, both sides, and her father's family was Irish from Ireland, and she did indeed have red hair that she was not born with.
Oh, wow.
And she looked Irish. So she and her husband were in Ireland looking for a cottage to move into to live where her ancestors were from.
Wow.
And it was fascinating to me, and I loved it.
Wow. Well, I have no desire to move to
Eastern
Ireland
Europe?
or Eastern Europe at this point. But
I might move to Ireland.
It says 50% Ireland and Scotland.
No, it means Ireland.
It does, because I don't know of any relatives from Scotland, but
Scots Irish is a thing, and they kind of are interchangeable.
Right.
However, going back to it, it is very clear. It points out Donegal.
Yes,
and indeed, in the few matches that I've looked at, Donegal is where they're all from.
Yeah, well, my grandmother, I had to look back, but my grandmother on my father's side, it was from Donegal.
There you go.
Yeah.
They're able to pinpoint that now. That's really cool.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I that was neat because it confirmed it. Like, wow, that's really there, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. So I was going to do like your whole tree and have it completely done, but I forgot.
Okay. You've been a busy lady.
I got really, really busy. So what I did was this morning, I just sorted through your matches and did a color sort.
Okay.
A quick color sort. So are you looking at your matches list?
I see, yes, DNA matches.
Yes. So click on groups.
Groups, okay.
Yes. Now see how the drop down has all of those names and all of those different colors?
Yes.
Okay, so and I kind of tried to keep them by like blue is more for the masculine side. And,
well, just so our listeners know, I gave Julie access to my results and made her a manager so that because I honestly didn't really know exactly what I was looking at, even though I've been doing this podcast for now 94 weeks. But, it is different, I will say, to see it when you're looking at stuff as opposed to like, I was thinking back, oh, those are shaky leaves. I see that. I had a lot of shaky. I've got 69 shaky leaves.
69 shaky leaves.
And I was like, oh, so I remember talking about these. So
right.
Now I got to listen back to our podcast and find out what the hell I'm looking at.
Right.
I could either do that or just say, Julie, become manager, please.
And I did.
All right, so I'm looking at my groups that you made.
So you're looking at them. So D'Angelo, and the reason that's called D'Angelo is because that's your top match, and that is your first cousin.
Yes.
And she is your first cousin that you have acknowledged, and I can see she has a little tree, and I can see that she is indeed your first cousin.
Yes.
So I clicked on her. Now click on shared matches for her.
Okay.
Now all of these people are blue.
Yes.
As you can see, and they are all on your paternal side. You may have noticed that I put a star next to this one person.
Yes.
Because he said, I won't say his name, but it says true surname Irish unknown, which I thought was interesting because he's basically telling his story in his name.
Oh.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? And I clicked on him, and I had to know a little more about him. And he's from England, and he's a semi-retired stunt double.
Oh, there you go. We have so much in common.
But he is from...
Because I pulled a lot of stunts.
Yeah. He's from Donegal as well. And there's a name in there that I have seen in your other trees that you probably am aware of. And when I build your tree, it'll probably all make sense.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I thought he was an interesting find. Anyway, so those are all the matches, all of your paternal matches.
Yeah. I mean, there'd be a lot on my father's side because my father was one of 9 children. And my mother was an only child, except she had a half brother through her father.
Right.
Yes.
Well, there are a lot but however, there are no crossovers. Normally, you get like some of the you get more than one colored dot.
Okay.
With some people because they're family and they have a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Okay.
But I don't have any crossovers, and all of these other lines that are all these different colors, I think are maternal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
I'd be interested because I know less about that family on my mom's side.
Yeah.
Than I do on my dad's side because there were fewer of them. You know.
Although, again, European Jewish, that's usually Ashkenazi Jews have way more matches than the average person.
Yes,
Yeah.
really?
Yes.
Well, it's very possible because, I know that my great-grandfather came over in the 1800s, and so I don't know anything about. He didn't even know his birthday. Because he said that it was it happened. It burned in the fire, and I thought it was probably my mom. I remember my mom saying it was probably like a pogrom.
Oh, wow!
And they were chased out, and records were burnt, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, people, the Jews moved around a lot.
Yes,
we're a wandering people.
Yes. So if you click on AM, choose your first yellow match.
And I see a yellow dot? Yes.
Click on
the first one?
Yes.
Andrea.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then click on shared matches.
Okay.
Okay. So now go down there and you see the third one down has 2 different colors.
Yes.
That means that there are 2 lines and that doesn't mean that they're 2 separate lines. That just means that it's a recent ancestral couple.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And then if you go down a little further, there's 3 on that one on Tupper Mom.
Tupper Mom.
Yes.
I love that there's someone that named themselves Tupper Mom on my tree.
And there's also 3 on Sheldon Corkland. So there's a lot to work with here. Some people have trees and some people have very small trees, but that's what I do. So,
well, I mean, one person here, Lauren, underneath Fourth Cousin, has 4,017 people on her tree.
And it could be a research tree too.
Okay, I was going to say that's a lot of people,
right? To be, I mean, yeah. Well, look at James Lane. He has 24,250.
Oh my God.
So. Yeah. Oh, there's a light blue and a dark blue on there. So I do have 2 different blue lines.
Okay.
Interesting. So, okay, here's the goal.
Yes. What is the goal,
So when
Julie?
I have time,
yes.
So by the next time we record, which is 3 weeks from now,
yes.
I hope to have your tree as back to at least half of your second great grandparents.
Oh wow, sounds.
I mean, that's. It depends on when they came here. I may not be able to do that.
Right.
I may be speaking out of turn.
So whatever you can get. Because honestly, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I told you when we started this that I was thinking more in terms of like, do I have a half brother I don't know about?
Right.
But now that I see how far back this goes, I mean, it's interesting to think.
Well. And I'm excited to do what I usually do with what I do for clients and just build as much as I can and see if I can find some interesting stories in there too.
I was interested that, like, I'm not a member of Ancestry, so it would let me look at like the 1940 census. Mm-hmm. And I will say I was moved when I saw my dad's name on the 1940 census as a child.
I always visualize like whoever, because there's usually a little an X with a circle around it next to the person that spoke to the census taker.
Yeah.
And I always visualize that person talking to the census taker.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Standing in a doorway.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the way they spell it, it seems like they spelled things phonetically, or like if the person had an accent, they didn't quite understand them, but didn't clarify it, and so just wrote it down completely different. Or their handwriting is so bad, and then it wasn't transcribed properly.
But it was still like I did feel a connection when I looked at something, and it's a government record. I shouldn't really feel this connection, but it's just seeing their names down, like somebody had to speak to them and they were there. You know what?
It was a face-to-face thing, and that is somebody's handwriting that was in the vicinity of your ancestor.
Right.
I don't even know how to explain why that's cool
or
to me.
Or to think of my mom as like this little girl that was in the household, with her parents. It's a fascinating what it does emotionally. And so, we've been doing this podcast a long time, and I get emotional when we talk about other people's stories. But then here we are, I'm looking at this stupid, like the census from 1940. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. This is so wild.
Well, this is cool. I hope that I can find some interesting stuff about your family that is not too far removed.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to see it. Again, I probably at some point will join Ancestry just so I can look at some of these other records, because there's shaky leaves.
Here's the thing:
yeah.
when I'm going to build the tree, and because I have a full account, access to everything, I'm going to put those in your tree. Once they're in your tree, you should be able to see them.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
it's interesting how it lets you see the 1940 census, but not the 1930
I didn't
one.
know it did that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I'd love to see the 1930.
Well, I'll put it in there.
Yeah.
There you go.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
Should we take a break?
Let's.
All right.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review. Or consider supporting us on our Patreon page, patreon.com/CutOff Jeans Podcast. Now back to Julie and me.
We're back.
Hello.
Hey, remember Peter Allenstein, who was our prolific sperm donor that was a guest early on that had, at the time, I think like 25 kids?
Yes.
He just dropped in, he just slid into my Facebook Messenger the other day and said, I'm up to 30.
I thought you meant he just swam in.
Yeah,
he just swam in with more matches. 30
Clearly,
kids.
He's a good swimmer. There's 30. He has 30 kids now.
Well, I mean, that was the goal, wasn't it? I mean, that was not 30 was the goal, but the goal was to be able to donate sperm to father children, right?
Yeah, but I don't think he ever imagined that there would be that many.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
I think
nuts.
anytime anybody went in there, it's definitely nuts. That had something to do with it, Julie. But let's not go there. I think we just did.
I think you did, and I am pleading the fifth. I don't want to talk about any of this.
No, but I mean, like, I guess that's not something he was thinking about when he was going in to donate.
Not. He was thinking about that $25 they were going to give him.
$25.
Yeah.
And not 25 kids.
Right. Boom.
A buck a kid.
How do you know? It's, wow. It's so great for him that, and those kids, that the way he's handling this.
Yeah.
I mean, he's letting them choose how they want to handle this and how involved they want to be with him.
Right.
And it's so cool because for him, and the fact that he doesn't have any kids or a wife, I think is great for him. But it's such a different situation when they've gone on to have families, and it's a whole different dynamic. But I'm happy for Peter.
30 kids.
30 kids.
Wow.
Okay, so let's move on to, this is fun. Remember I was talking about Google Earth Pro the other day?
Yes.
So the Church of England is launching a Google Maps for graves within the next 5 years, enabling family historians to search for burial records and locations in an online database. It's like Find a Grave, but it's more like a Google Maps. So it's going to map it for you.
It's going to actually, can it show you the grave? Like, can it get that detailed?
Yeah, well, Find a Grave does.
Does it?
Yeah,
I've never done that.
People, but that's like humans go to the cemeteries and actually take pictures of the gravestones and post them.
Google Earth is doing it from satellite.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. In fact, I have seen it. My Yeah, my third great grandfather, as I've spoken to Alexander Price many times, and discovered that after he abandoned his family, he showed up in New Zealand, and I found his grave, and I found an image of the plot from Google Earth.
Wow. That's something
Isn't that
else.
crazy?
It really is.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I see it, and then I'm like, oh, and then I look around, and there's nobody to share that with, and why would they care? It's such a strange thing.
My God.
It's a strange thing that I'm into. Okay.
Do you know, like, that people will have their names put on a headstone or gravestone before they die? Like, in other words, say your husband dies before you, and then
I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, it's creepy because then you go to visit the grave and your name is there.
Yes, I see that a lot. In fact, when I'm researching people, I'll go and look for a grave, find a grave,
right?
And there'll be the plot. And the husband will be there, and the wife's name is already there with her birthday, waiting for her to die.
Wow, that's just creeps
and that's
me out a
also
little
a way
bit.
to know that she's still living.
And find out how old she is, because she's put her
Precisely. Or she could have been lying if she was any kind of woman.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I I forgot to talk about this. At RootsTech, there was a variety. There were so many different attractions,
Vendors?
I guess. Yes,
Yeah.
in the
hall.
The hall. God, why can't I think of words?
I'll just feed them to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. There was one. I think there were like board games. There was a lot of board games.
Oh, like genealogy
They were
board games?
very peripherally related to genealogy.
Yeah, like DNA Monopoly and stuff?
No, they were not DNA, but it was like... I looked at a couple because my husband's a board gamer, and I thought, oh, here's a way to combine the two. Mm-hmm. But they didn't. First of all, they weren't nearly complicated enough for him. But that's another story. But yeah, there were a lot of board games and a lot of. The most interesting one I found, though, was a company that makes decorations for headstones.
What kind of decorations?
Like birthday, like party decorations. Ooh. And like anniversary. There were like things that you could put on a headstone that was like it would fit on it, like you were wrapping it.
Because headstones are all different sizes, depending on where the stone, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if they were custom made, like you would send them the measurements of a headstone, and then it would just but it was so specific. And I realized, people go to genealogy conventions for all different reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I have seen that in cemeteries. I've seen where people have brought, it looks like a little party. And we never did anything like that. Of course, on my mom's side, we were Jewish. We would leave a stone. So we didn't, we wouldn't be wasting our money on that. Not to offend
stereotype.
Not to offend the people who do that. No, I'm talking about the people who want to do that. I think it's fascinating that you would hold a little party there and sort of to include them. I think that's really sweet. Actually,
yeah.
It's just a very weird thing. To me, there's a little of like I can't give up the fact that you're not here anymore.
Right.
So it's a little sad to me that you would celebrate. Like it's one thing to go and pay your respects out of memory.
You just feel like their soul is around or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. I asked my dad what he wanted when he passed.
Yes.
Before he passed.
Yeah.
And he said he didn't care. He's always said, I don't care. I'm not there. I'm not going to be there. So I knew he wouldn't want like a formal burial or anything, and he wanted to be cremated. And I was going to bury him, his ashes with my mother in Washington State, and that ended up not happening. And I still have the urn at my house, and I'm still, I kind of don't want to let it go.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, I keep thinking about having my own little ceremony. Did I tell you this, that all of his sporting trophies I had, and I took all the things off, and I'm going to, all the plaques.
Yes.
And I'm going to decorate the urn with those.
I love that. Yeah.
Because those were his pride and joy.
Right.
Because he was a sporty guy too.
I guess when my dad wanted to be cremated as well, But I didn't want to hold that urn with me because I saw what happened when my mom had a friend's urn.
We talked about this,
and then
yes.
we didn't. I'm like, after she died, I'm like, well, what are we supposed to do with that urn now? And
Yeah.
so I actually went out on a boat with a friend of mine, and we scattered his ashes at sea. And now when I go to the beach and look out, I think my dad is like, I think of that,
Yeah, I think my dad loved traveling. That was what he did.
Yeah.
His goal was to see every country on the earth, and he came very close.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe I'll just start taking little bits of him on my travels.
Right? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Wow, how do we get into that?
I don't know.
Okay.
But I'm starting to think about this, like Google Earth Plus, like somehow coming into my house and finding the urn, going into your house and finding the urn.
My
like I'm going to
gosh.
search for the grave of Julie's father, and suddenly there's like a picture of your fireplace.
Oh my God.
That's a little
It's
creepy.
in the nook next to it.
Well, see.
So I'm going to talk a little more about this story.
right.
So the Church of England project will upload images of millions of burials. Database will feature maps and photographs alongside burial records. It'll go live in the next 5 years and has been trialed in 2 cemeteries. So they're going cemetery by cemetery, I guess.
That's got to take a long time.
Yes.
You think about how many cemeteries there are.
Oh,
Did I ever talk about
just coming from JFK into the city?
Oh,
You ever
yeah.
notice how many cemeteries are out there?
It's ridiculous.
It freaks me out.
Well, there's more dead than alive, right? More
Yeah.
dead people. But I remember when I was a kid, and I may have talked about this, but I grew up in Massachusetts, and it's very old there, and we had cemeteries, the really old graves, the kind that had like pictures of like etchings of skulls on them,
Yeah.
and angels, like skulls with angel wings. It was really kind of creepy. And some were so weathered that you couldn't really
Yes.
read all of it. And I remember people used to do grave rubbings, like and that kind of
My
thing.
brother did that for me.
Yeah,
My
but I
brother
mean,
did
these
that
were
for me on
of
my-
people that died in the 1600s,
Oh,
you
wow,
know?
cool.
And it was really cool, but they lived in my town. It's just so weird.
Especially back east, because
Yeah.
it's much older than
But
now.
then you go to Europe and like, 1600, that was nothing.
Oh, please. Yeah, I have pictures of ancestors' graves that I found online that are unreadable, but somebody has translated it.
I mean, and do
For
you
the-
feel like a connection to them?
Yeah,
Really? Because it's so so far back, you know?
but I share blood with them.
I know. It's
I
fascinating.
want to, and I want to so badly go and just walk in the footsteps of my ancestors. I want to go to the places where they're buried, and I
Yeah.
want to go to where they lived, and I just want to, because it feels I feel connected.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I guess I haven't felt that way in a long time because my parents are both gone and I wasn't interested in that so much,
Yeah. Before me.
Before they passed.
Yeah.
But now that they're gone and I just got the ancestry results and everything, I started thinking back like, oh God, I wish I could remember what it was that my mom told me about
Isn't
that,
that-
about her
yes.
grandfather, because I know she told me this,
Yep.
but it's gone,
Yep.
you know? So,
Yep. Word to the wise: have conversations with your parents and record them.
right.
Yeah.
Because I would love to know. I mean, we have I think I told you, we have a what looks like a painting of her great grandfather, in my mom's old house. It's still there. And I don't know his name.
Have you looked at the back of it? Have you tried taking it out of the back?
No, but I'm going to now.
Yeah, there might be, if you rip off the paper that's on there, there might be lots of information on
It's
there.
one of those things. It looks like a photograph, but it looks like a painting. So
Yes.
I don't know how that is. Maybe they painted over it, or I don't know. But it's really old.
Yeah.
And he's in an outfit that looks very like Victorian.
I have one like that of my dad's, an ancestor of my dad's that used to be at my Aunt Nancy's that he used to talk about. We would go over there and he'd say, that's my great, 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 great something.
Yeah.
And he was a Queen's Guard.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered about it. And I discovered when my dad was very sick, I decided I had to know who that was. And so I got a, my uncle has it in his house in Australia, and I had them take a picture of it and send it to me so that I could research it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was able to identify the uniform, and I know the exact regiment that he was in and when. So I know he was one of 2 people.
That's so cool.
But then I asked my uncle, or I asked my cousin to ask my uncle, if he could rip off the back, just like the corner of it, and he wouldn't do it.
Oh. Because it would mean like sort of defacing the back of the picture or something?
But
or?
it was the back of the picture.
I know, yeah.
I don't know.
But you feel like, it hasn't been touched in 100 years.
Yeah,
I don't want to rip it.
But you can do it carefully, and it's like the back of it especially is something that you can restore.
Sure.
Anyway.
Yeah,
but
I get it. I get it.
He didn't want to do it. So
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know, it's in Australia. I was hoping that maybe I would get it someday, but I doubt it. He has 3 daughters.
Oh, gosh.
All right. So should I finish this story? Was there anything else about this? Tim Viney, owner and manager of Atlantic Geomatics, told Mail Online, this is from the Mail, everyone, across the country there are thousands of burial grounds, each with important assets, buildings, and infrastructure. These valuable assets, in particular memorials and gravestones, must be maintained, records kept of where they are and what they look like. And this is sponsored by the Church of England.
Well, it's fascinating.
I know.
You know.
I think that's really cool. I like it.
Shall we take a break?
I think we shall.
Thank you for listening to Cutoff Genes with Julie Dixon Jackson and Richard Castle. You can support us by going to patreon.com/Cutoff Genes podcast. Now, back to the program.
All right. We're back in at story time.
Let's have a story, Julie.
Okay. This one is from Cathi Nelson. Remember I told you at RootsTech, my husband's cousin had a friend there that she insisted that I go talk to. And
she was right across the way.
And she was right across the way. So this is my little conversation I had with her. She did have a great story.
Oh, great.
And so we went out into the hall. So you're going to hear a lot of
background noise.
Yes.
That's great. Our listeners are used to hearing the telephone recording. So it'll be a little different.
Yes, this will be a little different. I kind of like it, the ambient noise. But yeah, we had a great conversation.
Great.
And this is it.
Let's listen.
Okay, guys, guess what? I'm here at RootsTech on the fly, and I am talking to Cathi Nelson, who, full disclosure, is a friend of a relative of mine.
I know, it's hard to put all, it's...
Yes,
yes.
It was
a serendipitous moment.
Exactly.
And our booths were right across from each other, of all things.
Right across from each other. She's like, find each other. And she finally gave me the number, and I looked up, and there it was. Right across from me.
That's crazy.
So that's a fun thing. Okay, so thank you, Deirdre, for connecting us. Appreciate it. She's been trying to get us to talk for a while.
I know.
I
have a number of Facebook private messages from her that we needed to talk. So
I know.
Here we are.
Okay, so Cathi has adopted children, correct?
Yes, I have 2.
And Cathi has a really cool story for us. So, Cathi, go.
Okay, my son, my wonderful son, was born in Abilene, Texas, to a birth mother. We knew her name, Gabriela. She came from Mexico City. She did have a visa at the time. Came to a adoption agency there, and we flew down, met her, took pictures, interviewed her all in Spanish, and then she left to return home to Mexico City. And at that point, because suddenly we were told we weren't going to be allowed back to Connecticut because she had identified the birth father, and interstate compact laws does not allow. Connecticut would consider that an at-risk adoption, so we couldn't come back. It was crazy. And we spent 6 weeks kind of in limbo, wondering if we'd ever be able to return home. And
were you in Texas?
Yes.
You were just hanging out
stuck in Texas.
Boy.
My poor little guy.
No offense, Texas.
No, I know, but we were like nomads. I mean, it was and he didn't sleep in a crib, or my family didn't see him. I know. 6 weeks doesn't sound long now, but at the time we never knew how long it was really going to be.
Right.
So anyway, I called it my A&D diet. I lost a lot of weight, anxiety, depression diet. It's like I didn't know what to do.
I remember those.
Yeah. So the agency was like, well, we'll just contact Gabriela because the information she gave us, and we'll terminate Andreas's birth rights because that's who the birth father was.
So the paternal
side. But then when they did that, all the information she had given us was not true. There was no birth father named Andreas. There was nobody, and we couldn't find her. So, long story, that you don't have to worry about the details of how we eventually got home, but we did. So then that was the story we always had. We knew that there was a piece missing. And then Joshua grew up in West Hartford, Connecticut, of Hispanic descent, and was wonderful. But by high school and stuff, it was difficult. He's 5'4", I think 4.5. My husband's 6'3". Big differences.
My size.
Yeah. He looks like. I mean, he's a wonderful, beautiful human being. But so we did do 23andMe. I came to RootsTech and I learned about DNA testing, and so I just wanted he has a younger sister who's also adopted. We knew her birth father. We had connected with her birth family. We had a major reunion, and so I always felt like he that was information that was important for him. So we did 23andMe, and we got the amazing results of just his genetic background, which was fascinating, and we forgot about it. And I was watching TV one night on 60 Minutes, I think, and it was a woman being reunited with her birth daughter, and, the emotional story. And I thought, I guess I haven't logged into that 23andMe in a long time. So I logged in, because I kept all the login information, right? I'd given it to all my family. I think I have like 10 people's accounts that I log into, and because I gifted it to everybody. And sure enough, there's an email to him or a private message. Oh my God, how is this possible? This means that you're my first cousin, which would mean that your father is my Uncle Raul in Mexico City and your mother is my Aunt Gabby. How could that be? And so, oh my gosh, I was just like, I started shaking because there was a man named Raul who came with Gabby to help when she was pregnant. He flew up with her, but he was this friend. And the agency always wondered, but he was pretty insistent that he was just a friend. So obviously, he was not the friend, he was the birth father.
Do you think he knew that? Or do you think they knew that, but chose to pretend?
The adoption agency?
No, the Raul.
I think he knew he was the
father?
I think so. We don't know. That's a mystery still unsolved. We don't know why he wouldn't have acknowleded that. They were very religious. We do know they came from a very religious community. And he was older than her.
All right.
Then they have since gotten married. So we know a lot of information, but we have no contact with them. So what happened is, Joshua, he was watching sports, which he loves downstairs, and I'm yelling, Joshua, get up here. He comes running up. We're like, oh my God, listen to this. That means he started shaking, and his tears started pouring, just coming down. And so he messaged her back. So that was like in November when she had messaged him, and this was like January. And she immediately responded. So they connected through social media first, Facebook. She's 28, adorable. She lives in St. Louis. It's his first cousin. Brenda is her name. And so we realized, so she told him her mom was Raul's sister. He has 3 aunts, 3 sisters. She came to the United States as an exchange student and stayed and had her daughter, Brenda. So they speak English, they're U.S. citizens. Right. And Brenda always went back to Mexico City to visit her family until she was about 9, when there was a big falling out, and she never knew why, but nobody talks about Raul anymore. He was disowned from the family. Oh. The grandmother sounds like a strong woman. And so she was really intrigued. So she knew that Joshua. So anyway, she flew out. We had a great reunion with her. She met Joshua, and they started this process of where she knows that her aunts in Mexico City, who are close to the grandmother, are reading her Facebook pages, and she kind of talked about Joshua, but there was never any interest. So we don't know why there was a falling out, but we do know that Raul married his birth mother, Gabriela, and he has a full sister.
And they're together now?
Well, we don't know, because nobody knows what happened to them because the family disowned them. I think we could find this information out. So this is the boundary issue for me as a mom. I feel like, I don't know, as an adopted mom, if he was younger, I would be pursuing all that. But he's 26 now, and it's his life and his journey. Yeah. So I did encourage him to get counseling, which he is. He's seeing a counselor who is also adopted and really involved in, had also reunited with her birth family. And I think in time, but sometimes he gets really upset and he'll say, I'm just starting my life. I have a girlfriend. I got a job. And, why don't they want to know me? Why can't they come find me? So I think there's a lot of emotions for him.
Yeah, I find in my experience, boys are a lot more emotional about this, but also a lot more in denial about it.
Yeah.
I think they take it to heart more, the abandonment to heart more, and are angrier about it.
Yes, you know what? Anger is, that would be Joshua. His emotions would be anger because he's insecure. He's maturing. It's like his brain is definitely kicking into gear in a different way. It's just been fascinating to watch. But Then he talked a lot about, though, he's of Mexican descent. So by 8th grade, he started getting teased and bullied a lot about that. And he doesn't want to tell people in the current culture that we live in and climate that he's from Mexico, because then they ask him, why, or where's your birth mother? And he said, I don't tell people anymore. He lies and says that he's Spanish or, Italian, and that just breaks my heart. Yeah. So I think it's just real complicated, and so I just love him, and we support him in any decision he makes. I wonder about Gabriela. So it's interesting. We always thought about her. We never thought about the birth father because we didn't know who it was. And then here now we have this relationship with this birth father, but we don't have.
That was a phone.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
He doesn't know anything about us. So what else can I say about Joshua, though? It's been interesting. I do think, though, it's filled in a missing piece. When Brenda came to visit him.
She did.
She came out from St. Louis. She's married. She has 2 kids. We bought her kids Christmas presents, and so they're 2 young boys. He wants to go to St. Ous and meet them because he feels like he's their uncle. They look alike. It's in Cathi. I can show you you can't because we're on.
Well, you can email. You can send it to me.
I can send it to you because so for the first time he got very emotional about that because for the first time he was able to look at somebody who looked like him. And that was just...
That's huge.
That was a miracle.
I can tell you that.
Yeah. Whoops, I just had it there. And then, that was great. So, let's see. Isn't that uncanny? That's Joshua, and that's his...
Oh, my gosh. Oh,
I mean, everything.
So
they look adorable, right? And they...
Yes. Joshua's darling.
Yeah, he is. He's a sweetheart.
Aww.
So we gave her flowers, and he was real nervous, and she was nervous. So I don't know why the family... So the grandmother seems to have a lot of power and control, and she, for whatever reason, his birth father Raul did, he's it's unforgivable in the family. So you realize that the family must have some issues, because I can't imagine a parent ever having anybody do anything unforgivable.
Maybe what's unforgivable is that he had a child out of wedlock and gave it up for adoption.
I know that could be it, right?
Yeah.
We don't know. Something around. We also wonder if he also may not be a nice guy. I mean, there's a possibility of that.
Sure. Yeah. Always. There's always a possibility.
Yeah, he may have hit. I don't know. There were some implications of maybe he got angry and.
Ooh, yikes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't know.
Do you think they probably live in Mexico?
Sure, I'm sure they still live in Mexico.
Yeah.
Joshua, he has a lot of anxiety. He has a lot of separation anxiety. Always has. Now that I understand adoption issues much better than I did as a young mom. He used to stand. We used to think it was the cutest thing when my husband would leave for work. He'd be so upset if I didn't wake him up before Larry would leave, and he'd stand on the front step and he'd scream out, "Bye bye, dada, bye bye, dada, bye bye," for like 4 years until he went to kindergarten, and he would fall apart if we didn't. And I thought that was cute. In retrospect, I mean, separation anxiety, and he gets worried when I travel, and all of these things that he's carried in his heart and soul. So I think
we have such a complicated psyche that and it affects us all in different ways.
So we tell him that again, and once I understood the primal wound, and I would say to him a lot too, Joshua, your emotions and feelings are based on birth trauma, and it's normal. You're not crazy. It's nonverbal. It's before your memory. It's a subconscious. It's unconscious memory. Yes. And now he has a girlfriend who is wonderful, and they really get along wonderful. And I've tried to educate her as well. He's a very kind of clingy guy, and so she can tolerate that, which I'm really glad. And but that's the reason why he's clingy. It's not.
Right. It's what?
It's not a personality
flaw. Just knowing the origin of something is half the battle, and at least you know what you're dealing with, and just have to learn tools to deal with it.
Right. And that that his I believe that in utero he heard her voice, and she spoke Spanish, and suddenly he's handed to a family that doesn't speak Spanish, and I just now in retrospect I think about all those things.
Well, you know what, I really want to thank you for being an amazing adoptive mother, because it's so important, and all of my friends who are adopting now are just so tuned in to the primal wound and to how it's necessary to keep their children in touch with their own ethnicity and history. And I just really appreciate it. And I think we've come so far, and I want more people to realize how important it is. So I thank you.
Well, thank you. It was wonderful meeting you, and thank you all you listeners. And it's an amazing story, though, of this whole DNA thing is opening up a whole new world.
Oh, yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
It sure is. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your business?
Oh, sure. Yes, absolutely. So actually, and it's funny how I got started. I always loved photos and stories, and I was in marketing and advertising until Joshua was born in my mid-30s. And then I left that because I wanted to be home with him. I had spent way too much time wanting to be a mom. And so I wanted to create a life book for him, though. Always from early on, I always didn't believe in secrets. I understood that would be dangerous. So I discovered scrapbooking as a way to be able to write stories next to photos, and I did that for about 15 years with Creative Memories of all things. And when they went out of business, if those of you remember did scrapbooking, people would ask me, "Can you do this for me?" And finally somebody said, "Well, how much do you charge per hour?" And I was like, "I don't charge anything per hour." And she's like, "Well, that's crazy. You have to."
Probably should.
I did. So I did. I started my own business called professional photo organizing. And then that grew. Other people wanted to find me and said, can you teach me how to do this? I said yes. So in the past 10 years, I've grown an entire organization of hundreds of members throughout the world that do this as a living. We train and teach them how to do it. I have annual conferences. We've just changed our name to the Photo Managers because it's really about photo managing. The whole digital world has created a much more complex technology issue for this. We love what we do. Our members, I always say you have to love people and stories, and then you go into people's homes or businesses and you curate their photo collection for them, make photo books, slideshows, all sorts of things, scan, digitize.
That's awesome. I love that. And how can people find you?
You can find me on thephotomanagers.com unless by April 1st. Otherwise, if you're looking before then, is appo.org. But we are rebranding, so it kind of puts us in this tough position. But or just Google Cathi Nelson, CATHINELSON, the photo organizer. I've written a book, Photo Organizing Made Easy, Going from Overwhelmed to Overjoyed. That's on Amazon. And I also have online classes on the Photo Organizers Academy if you need help getting your photos organized.
That's great. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Cathi.
Thank you.
I really, really appreciate it.
It was fun.
Okay.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Cathi.
Thank you, Cathi.
We bonded.
Oh, that's nice.
I really like her. And I love the kind of adoptive mother she is. She's my favorite.
You've really met a lot of nice people.
I've met some great
through
people.
This podcast,
Yes.
as far as your
Yes.
interviews, you know?
I have met some great people.
Yeah.
It's really opened up my eyes and my mind.
Yeah, that's terrific. And I'm hopefully for our listeners as well. I know it has been for me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Keep them coming, guys.
Anyway, yes, please do. Let us know if you have a story to share and share it, please.
Share it.
I am Richard Castle, and I have a website, richardcastle.com, that talks about the fact that I am a musical theater writer and a pianist. And you may also follow me on the Twitter, and it is @CastleSongs.
I am Julie Dixon Jackson. You can follow me at the Twitter @JulesJackson with 2 O's. Follow the podcast, CutOff Jeans Pod. Find us on Facebook, CutOff Jeans Podcast. Send me an email, JulesJackson@cutoffjeans.com. And one more thing.
What is that, Julie?
The truth is in your jeans.
Ah.